Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. We shine like diamond. Alright. Dañuy takk mel ni diamond. Alright. We shine like diamond. Alright, okay. Abadan diamond. New bad girl on the way, yeah. Mash up the thing every day, yeah. Chika walk to so fuck chibi rat chibi ti what I can it just to your way, yeah. Can you see your every bay, yeah? Never walk hard so I play, yeah. Jump with the failing a direct never someone yak like anyway, yeah. Even down on my knee. Even down on my knee. I go high. Shot them down. Shot them, billion pound. Lumble, like a crown. No more feet down. We shine like diamond. We shine like diamond. We talk a melody diamond. We shine like diamond. We shine like diamond. Diamond. Shine like diamond. We shine like diamond. We talk a melody diamond. We will shine like diamond. We shine like diamond. Diamond. Hey, you know you're feminine and you know you're the pen to go when you can do you tell them to monologue and you're top of us still a bus rest you know you're feminine and you know you're the pen to go when you can do you tell them to monologue and top of us still a bus rest down on my knee. Even down on my knee. I go high. Oh Maliko. Bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko. Bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Oh Maliko, bu amee ñu fi jéem a yëngal demal ne leen maa meeg des fois ñoo ngi ne di ñëw. Thank you guys.
Woo. Oh, what a way to start. What a way to start. I like the energy they infused in all of you. Thank you very much, Def Mama Def. Please let's give him another round of applause. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. My name is Marcus DeSando, for those who didn't see the video. Yeah, I know. I've seen it so many times, I get embarrassed at times. I'm like, welcome to tonight's evening of Louder Than Words, which, as you know, has been 3 years before we had one, so it's really quite special for all of us to be in the same room again. This evening, you'll get a chance to hear directly from some of our amazing creatives, people, about the extraordinary work that they're doing. These are people the Prince Claus Fund is honoring this week, and you'll see why. 5 of them are 2022 Impact Award recipients, and one of them is Ibrahim Mahama, who was our principal laureate for 2020, and due to the pandemic, he never got an opportunity to receive his award and also because he is doing his exhibition at the Oude Kerk, that is on now, we're plugging this. That is on us, so please go and see it. And then so we thought it's an opportunity to actually invite him to come, and then you will also hear his story. So the individuals you'll hear tonight are from diverse countries. One is from Brazil, the other one is from Egypt, Senegal, Argentina, Morocco. Hey, they just won the... and of course, Ghana, right? They work in different mediums. One is an architect, the other one is a filmmaker, one is an environmentalist, philosopher, plus there are 2 visual artists and a writer and poet. What a collection, eh? You may be probably asking yourself, how can they possibly have in common? Well, I think you'll find, as different as they are and as different as the places they come from, they are all sharing one thing in common. Well, a lot of them, but one in particular. They share a sense that their societies are out of balance, that the needs their people have go beyond just food and shelter. A healthy balance requires preservation of history, preservation of tradition, of beauty and value, and most importantly, dignity. Each of the people we'll see tonight, in their own way, has found a way to address those needs through culture. They engage their specific communities and also the world beyond, and they bring new thoughts and possibilities. Here in Europe, we tend to take for granted that culture is all around us, right? There are art and dance academies, there's galleries, there's museums, there's cinemas, there's theaters, there's venues like this. And it's all here and mostly accessible. But if we stop to think about why we find that important, if we pay attention to the feelings we have during a special concert, a fine exhibition, if we ask ourselves what drives us to read a book or go to the movies, or if we examine what satisfies us when we attend a moving poetry session or a dance performance, we begin to understand how precious culture is and how necessary it is for our well-being. When we talk about freedom of cultural expression, we mean everyone should have access, and that is their right. And so, as you know, that's what we really stand for as the fund. Tonight, I invite you to immerse yourself in the stories that our award recipients have to tell. I think you will find it more than just a window into worlds far away. I invite you to feel the reverberations. I've been practicing this word the whole day. See, that's why I had to feel the reverberations in my body, right? Yeah, the reverberations with moments in your own life when culture is allowed to feel a basic need. I would like to thank this year's Impact Award jury for the wonderful work that they did to pick this great group of recipients. And the first one is architect and 2019 laureate María Medrano, who's not here. Dancer, choreographer, storyteller, and 2007 laureate Faustin Linyakula, who's also not here. Multimedia artist, and 2010 laureate Dinkule, he's somewhere around. And also curator Maya El Khalil, who's also here. Wonderful. Yay, there. She waved. I like people that wave. But last not least, before I even thank him, I would like to invite on stage Pablo. I want to get your whole name correctly now. Pablo Leon de la Barra, to introduce tonight's speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you everyone for being here. It was 10 years ago that I was first here as a nominator, invited to be part of the Prince Claus family, and I've seen this family grow and go deeper into it. I was very honored this year to be invited to be the chair of the jury, but I owe everything, one, to the nominators who nominated this incredible list of 115 possible winners, and to my fellow jury members Maya, who's here, Ding, but also Mariam and Faustin. I learned a lot from all you. It was not easy to get to these decisions. Contrary to other jury processes, we met 3 times during the process of a year and really got to know each one of the nominees deeply. It was a very tough decision to get where we are now, but I think we did the right decisions. When we first finally met the winners a few days ago here in Amsterdam, we knew the decision was right. We were touched, surprised, humbled, and inspired by all of them. So I want to thank them, all the winners, and I'll introduce one by one. They'll come here and they'll tell us a little bit about them. They'll present their practices and show why it is so important what they do and how they inspire not only us in our own disciplines, but inspire society as such. And I think that's a real impact of the Prince Claus Awards. Meya Librashi is an architect whose work engaged often marginalized communities in Cairo's historic center in the conservation and rehabilitation of the cultural heritage. She founded the Megaura Built Environment Collective, which works as an architectural firm and an NGO. Through her work, she successfully links cultural heritage to sustainability and social responsibility. May Alibrashi.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you, Pablo. Hello, everyone. I'm the first one, so it's a bit nerve-wracking. But let me start by saying that it's wonderful to win any award, but it's exceptionally an honor to win an award from the Prince Claus Foundation Fund, because I personally have great admiration and I have great love for this organization, so thank you. I'm going to talk to you today about our work. We are as Pablo said, we are an initiative that is interested in heritage, in historic Cairo, but we're interested in it in a bit of a different way, because we think while it is extremely important to preserve our heritage, particularly our architectural heritage, we also think that this does not happen without the collaboration and the cooperation of communities, and it does not happen without actually the full partnership with communities. Oh yes, I need that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you some of our work and our journey over the last 10 years. Let's see if this works. Oh, that's not me, is it? It's not working. All right. So this is historic Cairo. This is where I work. And it is a World Heritage Site, 32 square kilometers of heritage, urban and architectural, dusty, chaotic, beautiful, and also very intriguing and very unwieldy to deal with. And yes, when you go through the city, this kind of yellow, dusty city, as I said, you can never imagine that certain buildings that you enter will be a riot of color, of geometry, of patterns, of nature abstracted into the most beautiful forms. And this is what I fell in love with as an architect 30 years ago. So I've been working in conservation for 30 years, but 10 years ago, we founded Atharlina initiative. Atharlina translates as Heritage is Art in the southern section of historic Cairo. We work in a district called El Khalifa, and within it we work in 3 neighborhoods. And I will try to walk you through some drawings and images through our process of trying to make sense of this neighborhood where we work the way we know best, through drawing and through photography and through understanding its architecture and its urban heritage. But as I do that, I'm also going to invite you to see that there is a kind of missing link that we came to as we try to make sense of our neighborhood. So this is the first area where we work, El Khalifa Street area. And we try to make sense of the neighborhood as elements within the street, a street that is a street, but very different from the streets that you know in Amsterdam. We also try to understand it through mapping its buildings and its open spaces and understanding it as a map. And we also tried to tease out the hidden beauty in the, the derelict buildings that we had, and to see how they can kind of come to the fore, this beauty can come to the fore without us changing the heritage within this area. This is the second neighborhood, Al-Hattaba, at the foot of Cairo Citadel, those of you who know Cairo. And in this case, it was an area threatened by demolition. So when we engaged with that area, it was to think of the buildings that you saw that were in a very bad state and think of how they can become new spaces. They can be reactivated as spaces for the community. And the drawing that you see in front of you is actually a proposal for a design and craft center in that neighborhood. We managed to get a stay on demolition on the neighborhood, but it's still, unfortunately, in a bad condition, and we'll see how we can change that in the future. And this is the third neighborhood where we work. This is Imam Shafi'i Cemetery. And in this case, we engaged with the most iconic historic building in that cemetery, a 13th century shrine of Imam Shafi'i. But even and you would expect me to show you drawings of, the documentation of the buildings, etc. But what I'm going to show you is what we discovered over and over again as we work in conservation, that without seeing the meaning of these buildings, in the hearts and the eyes of the communities that visit them, that live around them, that live within them, the buildings do not make any kind of sense. So what we as architects and people who work on conservation have been learning over and over again is that it is all about the community, it is all about the people. And this is how we decided that we want to work. So what we do is we try to engender the sense of belonging and the sense of ownership that communities should have for this heritage, because without that sense of ownership, they mean nothing and they will not be preserved. And that is what we have been trying to do for the last 10 years. I'm going to show you a 2-minute film that kind of encompasses the work that we've done. Let's see if this works. Aha. Yes. So these are the 3 areas that we talked about, and the kind of work that we do there, whether conservation, rehabilitation, or heritage industries and heritage education, or urban regeneration, but all this with a kind of underlying network of studies and reports, etc. We've worked on the conservation of 5 buildings so far. The one thing I want to say about conservation is that it's not just about the conservation of the buildings, it is about the conservation of the crafts, the intangible heritage. Without conservation, they would not be there anymore, the stonemasons, the carpenters, etc. But it's also about job creation. And speaking of socioeconomic empowerment, when we speak of education, and I'm going to tease these issues out very quickly after we're done with the film, we're not just talking about education, we're talking about heritage industries. How do you use heritage as inspiration to create jobs and to create income-generating activities? And these activities, they could be crafts, they could be tours, they could be walks, they could be design that is inspired by heritage, etc. Then on an urban level, it becomes a bit more complicated because we're dealing with a thriving neighborhood. We're dealing with a neighborhood that already has its own ways of coping and also growing and also thriving. And the question is always how to tap into these patterns, not to disrupt them, but to actually build on them. This is the neighborhood that I was talking about that is threatened by demolition. And this is important for those of you who are interested in conservation and in management of heritage in general, that a lot of the work that we do is actually documented in toolkits and publications and reports that are all published online, almost all of them both in English and in Arabic. And I'm going to talk about this in a little bit more detail in a minute, and this is the work that we do on an urban level, particularly with the problem of groundwater, and I will talk about this in a minute. Okay, so let's look about let's look at the first. I'm going to show you 3 very short examples. I have 3 minutes, so 1 minute each. So I think what we always are trying to do as people who work in this neighborhood in that way is to balance between meaning, which is what we normally get as architects and as people who are interested in heritage, and use, which is what we should work on to make this kind of heritage relevant and important to communities. So in terms of conservation, for example, this is the first building that we worked on. It's a 13th century building, and it's beautiful in its own right, and the work that we did is important in its own right. But the reason we chose it, yes, is because right next to it is another old building from the 1920s that used to be a community center. And we chose it because it was an opportunity to put ourselves as conservators in the first building and to take control of the second building and reactivate it as a place for the community. And then this is another example. This is heritage education. Obviously, it's important for our children to know about their heritage, and we do a lot of work on that. But as our children grew older, yes, and as we started engaging with adults, particularly women, it did not just become about teaching children about education, but vocational training, as I said, to get people from the community to benefit from heritage as an income-generating resource. And then the third example, yes, is the problem of groundwater, which affects the historic buildings in the neighborhood. And this is water that is leaking from the network pipes and from the sewage pipes, so it's important to get rid of it somehow. And what we've added to the equation is that we take this water and reuse it for greening to create parks and gardens for people of the community for the benefit of the community. And in this case, completing the triangle of heritage, community, and environment. And this is my last slide, and I still have a minute, so I'm actually going to finish early. And this is just to thank the people that we work with, both in terms of the communities that we work with, but also the team of Asar Lina. And I'm not going to dedicate this prize to them. This is their prize, and I would really like you to join me in thanking them and honoring them for the work that they do. Thank you.
Ailton Krenak is one of the great leaders of the Brazilian indigenous movement. He has provided a safe space for the development of indigenous leadership and has mentored younger generations of indigenous leaders, activists, and politicians. He's an environmentalist, a philosopher, a poet, a writer, and an artist who has been instrumental in putting forward new ideas about the relationship of people to nature and changing social attitudes towards indigenous peoples in the country. Ailton, that belongs to the Krenak Nation, is one of the 130 families that survive of the Krenak Nation. Ailton, ereje, obrigado, thank you.
Boa noite, que auditório bonito. Eu estou muito honrado com o privilégio de fazer companhia a esses meus colegas nessa edição de 2022 do Prince Claus. Eu devo estar pronunciando bem errado, mas eu estou falando português. E espero que a tradução ajude vocês a acompanhar a minha mensagem, que foi o tema que eu escolhi para essa conversa com vocês hoje à noite. Então, eu vou a uma leitura agora. Um instante. A vida é selvagem. Este é um elemento essencial para um pensamento que tem me provocado. Como a ideia de que a vida é selvagem poderia incidir sobre a produção do pensamento urbanístico hoje. Quando eu falo que a vida é selvagem, quero chamar a atenção para uma potência de existir que tem uma poética esquecida, abandonada pelas escolas que formam os profissionais que perpetuam a lógica de que a civilização é urbana e tudo que está fora das cidades é bárbaro, primitivo, e a gente pode descartar. Como atravessar os muros da cidade? Quais as possíveis implicações poderiam existir entre comunidades humanas que vivem nas florestas e as que estão enclausuradas nas metrópoles? Pois se a gente conseguir fazer com que continue existindo florestas no mundo, vai existir comunidades humanas dentro delas. Eu vi um número recente da revista do WWF, onde um relatório afirma que 1,4 bilhão de pessoas no mundo dependem das florestas, no sentido de ter uma economia ligada à vida dessas pessoas dentro da floresta. Não é propriamente a turma das madeireiras, não. É uma economia que supõe os humanos que vivem ali precisam da floresta para viver. A antropóloga Lux Vidal, em um trabalho muito importante lá no Brasil, sobre habitações indígenas, no qual relaciona materiais e conceitos que organizam a ideia de habitat equilibrado com o entorno, com a terra, com o sol, com a lua, as estrelas, um habitat que está integrado no cosmos. Diferente desses implantes que as cidades se tornaram no mundo. E eu me pergunto, como fazer a floresta existir em nós? Em nossas casas, em nossos quintais. Podemos provocar o surgimento de uma experiência de florestania, começando por contestar essa ordem urbana, sanitária, ao dizer: eu vou deixar o meu quintal cheio de mato. Quero estudar a gramática dele. Como eu posso encontrar no meio do mato uma árvore de ipê, uma árvore de jacarandá, uma peroba rosa? Como posso ter um buritizeiro no meu quintal? Temos que parar com essa fúria de meter asfalto e cimento em cima de tudo. Nossos córregos estão sem respirar, porque uma mentalidade de catacumba agrava-se com a política de um marco sanitário que acha que tem que meter uma placa de concreto em cima de qualquer córrego. Como se fosse uma vergonha a água correndo à superfície do solo. A sinuosidade do corpo dos rios é insuportável para a mente reta, concreta, de quem planeja o urbano. Hoje, na maior parte do tempo, o planejamento urbano é feito contra a paisagem. Como reverter o tecido urbano industrial em tecido urbano natural, trazendo a natureza para o centro e transformando as cidades por dentro? Essa é uma convocatória a uma rebelião do ponto de vista epistemológico na contínua prática de cultivar a vida. Muito obrigado, boa noite.
I'll just repeat the last phrase that Ailton said, because I think it's very important, and maybe it was not translated as well as it should have been. He ends by saying, this is an invitation to be rebel from the epistemological point of view in the continuous practicing of continue cultivating life. Thank you, Ailton. Alain Gomis is a Senegalese French film director and screenwriter. He is best known for films which tell the stories of young immigrants from sub-Saharan Africa and address the complexities of identity, foreignness, and agency, drawing from his own experiences dealing with dual nationality and the search for belonging. He established the Yennenga Center in Dakar, which promotes African film and develops local cinematographic talents in Senegal in the region, allowing young filmmakers to tell their own stories. Alain Gomis.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Good evening. I will try to speak English. I'm sorry. I hope you will understand. Okay, trying to explain why the Yennenga Center and all that, allow me to speak about my last film, because I've made a film by accident recently. I had the chance to see the footage of a TV show recorded by Thelonious Monk. I think that most of you know this great piano player, pianist, jazz musician, African-American, who died in 1982. And he made a TV show, a French TV show in 1969. And the way this TV show has been edited and broadcast at the time made a 30 minutes TV show where we able to see him play few tunes. And there is a journalist, actually he's also a pianist, but he's telling his story, the story of Thelonious Monk and of his career. And there are only two questions into this TV show asked to Thelonious Monk. One of them is, what is the title of this tune you just played, and do you remember when you have composed it? So I had the chance to see the footage, 2 hours and a half of footage of this TV show, and I was like very surprised to see that in fact all the other answers and questions asked to Thelonious Monk have been deleted, in fact. And it was clear, what we can see also in that is how Thelonious Monk is fighting using silence, because that's his way, against the portraits he's trying to do about him. So when I've seen that, I've decided to read it, to edit it in a different way, and try to shift the point of view, to go more into the point of view of Thelonious Monk. And it was painful to see in a way, because there is another thing, that this journalist, this French journalist, who was full of good intention and of admiration for Thelonious Monk, was carrying, even in its compliments, so many racial prejudices that it was just like shocking. So, all of this to say that we need to tell our own stories. We need to shift sometimes the point of views. Not to say that one point of view is more objective than another one, but I mean, we need to say the thing differently sometimes. And so and to do that, and to able for me to shift the point of view, I needed also to change the format. I needed also to change the grammar and to find my own way to tell this story. Because if you use the same grammar, if you use the same format, you will not be able to tell another story, and that's the point. So, back in 2018, I have started to make workshops with young people who wanted to become filmmakers in Dakar. I was very surprised and very impressed by the fact that they really wanted to make films in a country where most of them grew up in a world without cinemas, in fact. But they wanted to tell their story. They wanted to see themselves on the screen, like if it was like a natural need for everybody just to see yourself. So we have started to make workshops. And I was also surprised a little bit by the fact that most of the time they wanted to make film in a way. It's just like, most of the time it's you want to tell a film a way a film is supposed to look like. And so we have this new problem of a grammar that we already have, like, So we had, and my job was just trying to accompany them, to help them to go to find their own way to make this film. Then we had the problem of editing it, because in Senegal and most of the country in West Africa, it's very difficult to make your post-production there. Post-production is editing, sound editing, mixing, and color grading. So this is really about the shape of the film and the format of the film. So if you can't do it there, then you get the same kind of problem. How will you be able to find your own way to say things, to say new things, to have your point of view, and not only to change the faces on the same pictures? So we have tried to put together a post-production center where we have today like 25 students, and to try to teach a little bit this different, you know what I mean? And but the question remains the same, We don't want to teach them how to do it. So the thing is trying to show them different ways to use this tool. Because at the end of the day, sometimes we are made by these tools. I mean, these tools already have a grammar. These tools already have a way. So this was one of our main concerns, how to teach without teaching, in fact, and how to make them take it and do it their own way. The other thing is trying to finance it. And it was a discovery for me to try to find some funds and things. And you know how much it's difficult sometimes, because they all got their own agenda. And they're trying to, in a little way, to hold you and to put you in, to make you do the thing the way they want you to do the things. And so which is a big concern for us. And it's very dangerous. You know for sure that we still are in a neo-colonized world. And that this very big, this enormous economical conquest of the world haven't stopped. Sometimes it changes its ways, but it's still on. And you can easily, working on different cultural bases, you can find some, foundation and things trying to use you in a way. And and nobody, we don't want to be like, how you say it in English. I've seen that, I've learned that. It's, you said something about native informant. So nobody wants to be this native informant. And that's a big issue. So you have to fight every time, trying to stay independent, trying to do the things your own way. And you know that at this period, there's a lot of platforms, a lot of people coming, because Africa is supposed to be the big market. So you trying to work with young kids, and they're not young kids, they're not that young. But you know that what you're doing is also dangerous. I don't have any answers, but I just want to say that we are very concerned about that. So, here to say that the problem is to become, as what happened to Thelonious Monk, at some point, the object of another history, in terms of financing or in terms of being able to tell your own story. Because what happened into this TV show at some point, I think that what Thelonious Monk had to say about himself wasn't the point for them. They just wanted to show how much they were progressive and able to put on the broadcast, on this national TV somebody like Thelonious Monk, and they were just complimenting themselves, in fact, doing so. And for some fans, they are also complimenting themselves. So we have to be very careful about that, and this is not easy. So I wonder, wow. I have 3 thoughts I wanted to share with you. One is for Sekou Sissoko. Sekou Sissoko is a filmmaker from Mali, and he happened to be also the Minister of Culture in Mali. He said, we need to tell our stories, we need to, it's not exact in the exact quotes, but we need to say the way we love, we hate, we fight, if we don't want to be drowned by the feelings and the sensation of the rest of the world. I just wanted to share also with you what Souleymane Bachir Diagne, a Senegalese philosopher, says about translation. He says, almost everything can be translated. Every idea, every meaning, but it stays into every language something that is untranslatable. And this untranslatable, it's you, it's me. It's this respect needed and to give to everybody to say, yes, I could be you, but I'm not. And from this respect, maybe we can continue to build something together, and maybe cinema, because doing cinema, doing film people, it's not only about, North and South. It's about trying to not make an object of your subject, to not transform your subject on an object, which is very difficult to do. So it's about silence. It's about being able to hear. It's about to be able to say, I don't understand everything. And it's maybe about to be surprised by the final shape, the final form of your film, because it is made by your subject. Thank you very much. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Here we go now. Like this. Everybody clap your hand like this. Yakana, yakana, yakana. Ooh. Everybody. Yakana, put your big kapaga. Ooh. Yakana, yakana, yakana. You. Yakana, put your big kapaga. Masamba Merino, Baidu Raste, Mugude, Masamba Merino, Baidu Raste, Mugude, Masamba Merino, Baidu Raste, Mugude, Masamba Merino, Baidu Raste, Mugude. Hey! Wow. Hey! Mane bisimilai mai tagu yalla tagu yonon temba. ñëwal
ginnaaw bi ma sant yàlla sant yonentam ba
waaw waaw clap your hand for Defa
ñu bindaat la ma liif soog a ñëw la ma liif googu lay daan ak bër
mane bismillah ñu tàggu suñu yaay tàggu suñuy baay ba
loolu
mane bismillah ñu tàggu suñu yaay tàggu suñuy baay ba
ndax doom ci tàggu ndey ak baay wàcc na fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban yàgg na waaw waaw yàgg na ba ca biir Kaaba ga yàgg na ba ca biir Kaaba ga Masambay Meri Ndaw bay du raas demu guddee Masambay Meri Ndaw bay du raas demu guddee Masambay Meri Ndaw bay du raas demu guddee Masambay Meri Ndaw bay du raas demu guddee
come on
ñun ñaar fa nu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban
looloy dëgg
ñu bamtuwaat ko ñun ñaar fa ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban
that's true wàccoo wu ñu xobi Dakar di ko ngemboote waa fu ñu singe
ñun wàccoo wu ñu xobi Dakar di ko ngemboo mu si ñoo waa fu ci ngeer def leen ñu ni ñu yàlla def ñu noppal leen su ngeen ñu deful ni ñu yàlla def ñu jaaxal leen
teral nañu buur
ak kan
teral baadool
ak kan
teral suñuy maas
ñun teral nañu buur teral baadoola noon ak kañu bëgg ak kañu bañ
waaw
ñun ñaar ñoo doon suñuy baay doonu seeni baay seeni baay yi baay doonu seeni maami mambo
fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar fu ñu jaar ku fa jaar taqaban. Thank you so much. Thank you. We love you. Thank you.
My Deaf are definitely a better show than me on stage. Thank you, Mami Victory and Defa. And now we continue with our program. Hassan Darsi is a visual artist from Morocco who engages the public and promotes critical thinking about public spaces and citizenship. He co-founded Les Sources de Lyon, a cultural laboratory that brings together thinkers, artists, journalists, students, and the general public to discuss the role of art in society and the use of public space. Both individually and with Les Sources de Lyon, Darsi has produced art projects that are significant in the history of contemporary art in Morocco. Hassan Darsi.
Thank you, Pablo. Je vous remercie d'abord pour votre écoute. Je remercie la Fondation pour d'avoir permis toutes les personnes qui ont œuvré pour que ce moment ait lieu. Je voudrais partager avec vous quelques points essentiels dans mon travail. À commencer par ce costume de lion que je porte. Voilà. Le costume de lion que je porte est une œuvre mobile dont je deviens le propre support. Le costume de lion archive une collection participative d'objets et d'images à l'effigie du lion. Dans la poche du costume, il y a le journal du lion, qui archive des textes écrits par plusieurs personnes au chevet des lions agonisants dans le zoo de Casablanca. Ce projet, il veut juste dire qu'une société qui ne prend pas soin des animaux ne peut pas prendre soin des êtres humains. Donc ce projet, il est mobile. À chaque fois, je réactive mon indignation. L'homme qui court, L'homme qui court, un autre projet, une série d'actions filmées où je cours sans objectif, dans des espaces qui manquent de vie, des lieux vides, comme suspendus et en attente. Chaque projet est un temps de recherche sur les formes et les formats en adéquation avec les lieux, les sujets ou les thèmes. Les projets peuvent prendre le format de l'exposition, de la performance, de la vidéo et du film, ou des interventions, généralement éphémères. Un autre lieu, une autre histoire, et un nouvel exercice. Une série de photographies dans le projet Portrait de famille numéro 5, réalisé en 2005 avec des passants dans un souk, un marché populaire dans la campagne profonde du Maroc. Un autre lieu encore, et une autre histoire, hors d'Afrique, à Tenerife. Là, j'ai doré à l'adhésif les blocs en béton d'une jetée construite pour protéger un port de plaisance destiné aux touristes occidentaux, sur laquelle la jetée viennent s'échouer les corps de migrants africains noyés. Cette action s'inscrit dans un projet plus large, application dorure, menée depuis plus de 20 ans. L'utilisation de la dorure, c'est un paradoxe, c'est déplacer l'indice de la richesse, du pouvoir, pour signaler la tragédie, le danger, mais aussi, peut-être, la déchéance de notre humanité. Je dois dire que j'ai une prédilection pour le travail dans l'espace public. C'est même mon atelier, en fait, de travail. Un des outils que j'ai mis très tôt en place à Casablanca, en 1995, est l'association La Source du Lion. Un espace d'échange et de création, un lieu de réflexion, de recherche et d'expérimentation. Nous avons conçu tous nos projets en tant que passerelle entre les artistes de disciplines, avec d'autres disciplines, des disciplines différentes, et passerelle aussi vers le public. Tel est le cas du projet de la maquette, l'Ermitage en projet, le square d'en bas, de Lyon se meurt, mon village, ma vie. Des projets dans des formats et des lieux différents et avec des participants différents, mais le principe est toujours le même. C'est le travail à l'échelle. L'échelle est un point essentiel dans toute ma réflexion. De l'échelle et de sa justesse dépend la qualité et la viabilité de toute la construction du projet, n'importe quel projet, et puis de sa poétique. À quelle échelle observer, réfléchir, travailler, c'est ce qui manque. Le projet de la maquette est un exemple. Le chantier de construction de la maquette s'est déroulé en vis-à-vis d'un bâtiment. Les fenêtres de l'atelier donnaient sur le bâtiment. Pendant que nous travaillions à faire la maquette, la destruction réelle du bâtiment s'est amorcée. Et nous avons dû apporter des changements sur la maquette. Un autre projet, mon village, ma vie, dans la campagne, autour de Casablanca, où il y a aussi un vis-à-vis entre un projet destructeur de carrières, de sable et de gravier, et la volonté des habitants de sauver leur territoire, avec un projet de jardin agroécologique, des contestations qui ont pris plusieurs formes. J'ai changé parce que je n'ai plus beaucoup de temps, donc je vous laisse regarder. Je voudrais juste dire que là, c'est des extraits, mais que vous pouvez trouver plus d'informations sur le site hassandarsi.com ou lasourcedulion.com. Il y a tous les projets en détail. Je vous remercie beaucoup.
María Medrano, a writer, poet, and editor from Argentina, who co-founded Yo No Fui, It Wasn't Me, a non-profit trans feminist organization that works with formerly incarcerated women and members of the LGTBQIA+ community. They lobby for the abolition of prisons and use poetry and arts to create a safe environment that can offer prisoners and former prisoners useful skills to build a better future. María Medrano.
Hola, buenas noches. Sufro de pánico escénico, así que voy a ir atrás de mis papelitos. Pero antes quería agradecer a todas las personas que hicieron posible que hoy estuviera acá, compartiendo con todos los compañeros premiados, y agradecer profundamente a mis compañeros del colectivo que me sostienen y me abrazan cada día. Seis y 30. Op. 6:30. Llegás a Constitución a las 7. A 6 a las 8. Te parás detrás de la barrera hasta que te dejen entrar. Atravesás el camino que llega a la ventanita. Haces la cola. Esperás a que te atiendan. Te atienden. Entregás carnet y DNI. Das un nombre. Buscan, fichan y te dan 3 números. Te hacen esperar otra hora más detrás de la puerta de rejas. Te abren. Entras al pañol. Esperás de nuevo. Te llaman por el numerito amarillo. El que tiene sello es para DNI. Vaciás tus bolsas, te revisan cosa por cosa. Pinchan, abren, sacan, rompen. Nada relleno, nada metal, nada vidrio. Pasan todo a bolsa. Te sacan ropa azul, gris, negra. Dejas valores. Después te dan otro cartoncito, valores. Te haces otra cola, otra espera. Vas a requisa. Te levantás el suéter. Te levantás la remera, el corpiño. Te das vuelta. Te levantás del cuello la ropa. Te tocan el cuello, el pelo. Te das vuelta. Te desabrochás el botón. Te bajás el cierre. Te bajás los pantalones. Te bajás la bombacha. Te das vuelta. Te agachás. Te enderezás. Te subís los pantalones, la bombacha. Te sacás los zapatos. Te revisan los zapatos. Te tocan los pies. Te sacás las medias. Te pones las medias. Te revisan los bolsillos. Finalmente te dan un cartoncito, requisado. Te acomodás la ropa. Agarrás tus bolsas. Te acercás a la otra puerta de rejas. Agarrás el requisado. Y esperás a que el milico te abra. Te abre. Pasás a los tumbos cargada de bolsas. Nunca se termina de entrar, pensás, y entrás. Te caminás esa cuadra enlomada. Te parás frente a esa puerta de hierro macizo y pensás que el cielo está demasiado bajo en Buenos Aires. Y la pateás, porque ya no te quedan manos con qué golpear. Te abren, entregás el requisado, entrás. Subís una escalerita caracol así de angosta, un piso. Esperás a que te abran la puerta de hierro. La llave que la abre es enorme. Con una así le abrieron la cabeza a una. Te caminás. Te parás en la puerta donde te piden su nombre. Anotan. Pasás. Buscás rápido una mesa. Mirás si están Aldo y Mari. Si están, te vas con ellos. Si no, los esperás con una mesa. Después llegan ellas. Y el tiempo se te pasa demasiado rápido y querés decir lo que no tiene palabra. Llaman pabellón por pabellón. Te da escalofrío el sonido de esas voces llamando y el conglomerado de toda esa gente que se abraza. Ellas se van pabellón por pabellón y te quedás ahí una hora, hasta que termine el recuento interno. Recién ahí te podés ir, cuando ellos quieren, cuando ellos te abren la puerta, y la otra, y la otra, y la otra. Bueno, este es un poema que escribí hace 24 años, cuando todavía trabajaba en un juzgado de instrucción penal. Me acuerdo que era junio de 1996, cuando cayó detenida una chica rusa de mi edad y que estaba en completo estado de shock. Recuerdo que no encontrábamos traductora oficial y mientras esperábamos a que llegara la traductora, nosotras intentábamos comunicarnos a través de dibujitos. Así, con esa imposibilidad del lenguaje, arranca esta historia. Yo no era abogada ni estudiaba Derecho, era poeta. Y esta era la primera vez que iba a tomar una declaración indagatoria. Me conmovió tanto esa situación que decidí renunciar a mi trabajo en la justicia y comencé a visitarla en la cárcel el fin de semana siguiente a su detención. Y la visité durante los 3 años y medio que duró su condena. Entrar a la cárcel para mí fue un acto definitivo. Fue la primera vez que me topé con la cárcel y con la pregunta por la cárcel. ¿Quiénes estaban ahí? ¿De qué color eran sus rostros? ¿La cárcel servía para algo? Se me abrió un mundo. Y como soy poeta y mi forma de tramitar las cosas de la vida es escribiendo, entonces me puse a escribir y escribí un librito de poemas que relataba mi trabajo en tribunales y la visita a la cárcel. Después, en el año 2000, luego de la publicación de mi libro, me convocaron de la Casa de la Poesía de Buenos Aires para dictar un taller y yo pedí que fuera en la misma unidad a la que había ido de visita durante esos años. Y acá comienza la historia de nuestro colectivo. Yo no fui surge a partir de ese taller de poesía en una cárcel junto a las mujeres que estaban privadas de libertad. La escritura nos abrió la posibilidad de hacernos preguntas sobre nosotros mismos, sobre el lugar que ocupamos en la sociedad, sobre la existencia de la cárcel, sobre la justicia, sobre los castigos, sobre el delito, sobre los feminismos y sobre el deseo. Y estas preguntas fueron atravesando los demás talleres que luego se multiplicaron dentro de las unidades penales y afuera, en el medio libre. Serigrafía, costura, fotografía, carpintería y otros talleres que fueron surgiendo con el tiempo. Espacios de encuentro, de construcción de nuevas formas de vincularnos, de búsqueda, de reflexión sobre nuestras propias vidas. Nuestro colectivo es un colectivo palabrero, un colectivo que disputa las palabras, porque no queremos ser dichos por otros, ni por las instituciones penales, ni judiciales, ni por la academia. Nosotros nos propusimos crear nuestra propia lengua sudaca, poética, transfeminista y anticarcelaria. Queremos forzarnos a imaginar nuevos modos de atravesar los conflictos, que no estén ligados al castigo. No podemos resolver conflictos tan diferentes con las mismas recetas y pretender universalizarlas como si aplicaran para todo el mundo por igual. El sistema de justicia y castigo criminaliza nuestros colores de piel, nuestras trayectorias, nuestros placeres, punitiviza nuestras adicciones, condena nuestros deseos y nuestros modos de gambetear la vida. Así como alguna vez abolió la esclavitud, creemos que también las cárceles deben dejar de existir. Nuestro trabajo se articula entre el adentro y afuera de las cárceles. Trabajamos en cárceles federales, nacionales y provinciales. Además, habitamos una casa colectiva que alquilamos con mucho esfuerzo y acondicionamos, y a la que semanalmente asisten alrededor de 200 mujeres y personas de la comunidad LGTBIQ+. Nuestra organización se compone de un colectivo editorial, un colectivo audiovisual, un centro de formación educativo en artes, oficios y comunicación, una cooperativa de trabajo que hace su propia línea de indumentaria, un taller de experimentación gráfica y encuadernación, y recientemente abrimos una nueva unidad productiva de estética y cuidado corporal. Además, tenemos espacios grupales para trabajar las afectividades y los cuidados colectivos, espacios terapéuticos, asesoría legal, espacio de cuidado para niñas. En Yo no fui hicimos del acompañamiento y la poesía un colectivo, y del colectivo una manera de estar en el mundo. Ahora quiero cerrar este momento compartiendo un poema de una compañera, Liliana Cabrera, que ella participó durante casi 8 años del taller de poesía en el penal Y hoy es una compañera que es docente del colectivo y que va a otras unidades a enseñar poesía. Y es una gran poeta. La reja se estrella contra sí misma y yo me estrello contra la reja. El pasado, los años, las horas, el presente, el futuro, los minutos. Cada segundo queda aplastado tras el estruendo. La reja se cierra, deja surcos invisibles en el mosaico, marcas que permanecen como herida abierta en las muñecas, cortes verticales en las venas, de esos que no se pueden suturar. Ustedes allá, nosotras acá. En el medio, un torrente de vida que se escapa. Es imposible unir lo que separa. Gracias.
Luis Manuel Otero Alcántaro is an artist and human rights activist in Cuba, whose performances are critical to the conditions many Cubans face. He is one of the leaders of the San Isidro artist movement that promotes freedom of expression and cultural rights, and co-founded the Museum of Dissidents, a website and public art project reclaiming and celebrating dissent. His defiance of restrictions on artists have frequently led to his harassment and detention by the authorities. From July 2021, Luis Manuel has been deprived of his freedom, and although he cannot be with us tonight, he has sent us a recorded message.
Bueno, todo quiero agradecerle a todos los seres de buena voluntad que han contribuido a este premio. Súper orgulloso, súper feliz. Decir que es un premio al arte independiente cubano, un premio a resistencia. Yo ahora mismo estoy en la prisión de Buenos Aires por mi arte libre, por decir lo que pienso, por querer contribuir a una sociedad mejor, tanto cubana como mundial. Y este premio me hace pensar también en Van Gogh, me hace pensar en tantos artistas, tantos amigos míos que han contribuido y nos ayudan a diario a que el mundo sea un lugar mejor. Un premio a poder sentir, un premio a todos mis amigos, a todos los seres que de alguna forma u otra también han estado conmigo en este camino y que seguiremos luchando, que seguiremos haciendo arte libre y seguiremos trabajando por el amor, pero todo eso, por el amor. Entonces es un premio de amor que pues recibimos con mucho amor. Cuando hablo de recibimos, estamos hablando de todos mis amigos, dentro del movimiento, fuera del movimiento, todos los seres de buena voluntad que están apostando por el amor, dentro y fuera de Cuba. Estamos súper conectados.
Wow, yeah. It's tough. It's tough sometimes to accept that we live in societies that repress so much of what we do. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Ibrahim Mahama from Ghana. Ibrahim is a visual artist who is actively involved in improving social conditions. And if you get to visit the work that he does in Ghana, you will be completely moved by the kind of dedication that he gives to his community. His powerful artworks use provocative materials and sites to examine and expose histories, uphold the role of labor, challenge authorities, and criticize mismanagement of resources. Ladies and gentlemen, Ibrahim Mahama.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much, Prince Claus, for this wonderful honor. It's been 2 years, but I'm still living within it. And it's actually a privilege and an honor to share stage with all these wonderful speakers. So I'll try my possible best. So I will start my presentation from my practice with regards to institutional building. When I was an art student, one of the questions that we kept asking ourselves is that, how is it that we're a generation that is born so much into debt? We inherited quite a lot of infrastructure, but yet when it comes to culture, there isn't much infrastructure that is dedicated to it. So being someone who studied a lot of Western art history and also made work that ended up in museums in the West, the question was always, how do we create institutions that somehow creates an equal opportunity for people back home, particularly within this local context? Because for me, precarity is very important in terms of how we convert that into a gift in a way. So I like the idea of the precarious gift. In 2014, when I sold my first artwork in London to the Saatchi gallery, I thought, because I read so much about the Charles Saatchi and all that, and there was always a question of, when we become artists, what do we do? How do we solve like the subject matter and also audience and all that? So I decided to dedicate the money to building like a studio. I thought the studio could inspire young people, because not many parents would want their children to become artists one day, moreover people who think critically. So I bought this piece of land, which has my studio on it, but I also like the idea that it's a studio that does many things. So we have like a forest area, which is part of the studio, which I'm conserving, so looking into like ecological crisis and issues. I have airplanes that I collected, all things that we converted into classrooms. We have a parliament, a library, cinema, an archaeological museum, blah, blah, blah. We're planning to build a school one day. So very small things. The question of labor is very important in terms of how we think about art and how that is converted into other forms. So I like the idea that when we make art, we have to make room for the labor that makes art. In modern art, we learned that when the white cube is built, and then we have to show work within the white cube, it's mostly like, you go to the museum and you see the painting, but it's somehow devoid of the labor that goes into it. So I always said that when I go to Western museums, most often 99% of the audiences are white and 99% of the security are like minorities and all that. And I think it's something that we have to be able to subvert. So I like the idea that people like my colleague at the center, who's like the security man, also someone who's grown up in the village where we build the institution, who contributes his labor to it. When the kids come there on a tour, he also gives them tours. And I like the idea that we are showing the work of Olafur Eliasson, Icelandic artist. How do you connect that to a village in Africa somewhere? But I like the idea that art is able to allow us to come, like it transforms. There's a transformative element within it, which that's where the revolution is in terms of how we change the form. So his boy was, one of his children was just 5 when we started building the studio. But the idea of being there every day, having conversations, seeing the objects that I collect, because I collect quite a lot of things, from airplanes to trains. I do quite a lot of different things, archival materials. And then through these conversations, when we have kids visiting the studio, and he's not in school, sometimes I just say, oh, can you take the kids around? It's much believable for the other kids for him to give them. Because when I give them, they're like, it's this guy who is traveling around the world. Like there's still that kind of disconnect. So it's not about the fact that I'm from there, but it's about creating the necessary conditions that allows for that connection to happen. So you see we have old gramophones, like jet engines. So the idea is to somehow cut art across from archival to like the technological and all that. So we also have like, so some of the things that I collect, like the airplanes and like thinking about the labor again and how we use constitution of labor to be able to collect these things. So that like, engineers, truck drivers, how do you bring all these people in order to be able to produce and make art on a different scale and level that somehow promises a different form of emancipation. So it's also, when we were transporting some of these things, you could see how some of the kids who encountered these objects were very surprised. You know, if you were living in a village somewhere, you never saw a train, a plane, and suddenly one day you saw a plane like taking a stroll down your house. It mostly sounds like Steven Spielberg suddenly appeared in the village and was about to shoot like a massive film or something. But I like the idea that it really changes the way that these people within these communities also, they're feeling about they being part of the world in terms of the many things that happen and how art can be stretched in terms of the imaginations that come along with it. So we have sometimes, I'm waiting for the next image. Yeah, so this, where we have like the interior of the airplanes, where we use them as classrooms, we do coding workshops, we teach them about drone technology, all kinds of other things. But it's also about this idea of creating these different moments of singularity, because in most, like if you're in a village, like your reference, because your father was a farmer, your grandfather was a farmer, but the idea that now we have different points of reference in terms of how we think about art and also how we relate to culture is very different. So even some people, and it also inspires other people, like a friend of mine who wants to teach coding. So then we say, let's dedicate one of the airplanes to coding, and then we do different things. So how the work that we do and how that inspires other people is important. Also, you realize that in an image, which is like of the colonial period, British, extractive, but then we use the archives that I collect to build different spaces that also can inspire a different generation. So that's why I talked about the precarious gift. It's one that is very precarious, but it has the ability to transform the way people think. And artworks that would normally produce out of residues that would end up in Western institutions, now within the context of the local, you also have local people having. So it's not as if you have to go to New York or to London, right within the context of Ghana. That reference is there. And in this case, there were school kids who wanted to come to the space, but they didn't have money for a bus. So what they did was that they did a PE exercise, and they jogged 40 kilometers just to see. Yeah, so this is one of the moments that art and running becomes one thing. Yeah. And yeah, there's also one thing, very interesting. The man who is a tricycle driver, and he brings visitors to the space. And he's like, oh, wow, like this is really interesting after like having a tour, because it's open all times. And he's so inspired, because most of these people, they live by the day. If you don't work in a day, you don't eat. And just by that transformation within that moment, he stops work, he goes home, and he goes to bring all the kids in his house. He's like, you really have to see the place I saw today. So it's really interesting how, like, because before people would say, oh, but why would you build a thing like that in a place? Because art exists within the context of the city, blah, blah, blah. People, I'm like, no, art is about precarity and how we're able to overcome that in a way. So in the part of the studio, you realize that as we build, the architecture is not about the fact that we build and we occupy the building. So we occupy the building, like the labor and everything. You realize there are men who are laying the bricks. We have kids who are using it as a classroom, and we have other kids who are also almost as if they're looking at a performance or something. So I like the idea that as we're digging, the memory, because we want to change culture one day, it's not just through a policy, but it's also through what we give as a gift in a way. And you realize the teachers in these local areas, they're also, because a lot of them are not paid very well, but because they teach in very poor communities, they use their money to buy uniforms, sometimes for the kids. And they would organize workshops, bring the kids to these kinds of spaces to be inspired. So just to give you a sense of like, so generally within a week, maybe we have like 1,000 or 2,000 kids, and sometimes we even have to bus them to the space. So it's not just a matter of just building, but it's also how we redistribute the things that we think are important. So my colleagues, we work quite a lot where we go to different community schools. So it's not just a matter of building, but it's also a matter of outreach, where how you're able to expand these ideas and forms is very important. In COVID, I took this image in COVID times. So you realize that the kids now begin to teach themselves. And that is the thing, that we build a society where children take responsibility. And then they trust themselves and they're able to transmit knowledge. And this is the last image, which is very important. It was a picture I took in 2000, and 12, 10 years ago. And I used to go to the markets, convincing the markets women to give me these old sacks that they used to transport commodities, mostly from India and Bangladesh. And they would say, but the university graduates, what do you want in this space? But that's the point. The idea that we could take an object which was somehow deteriorating in order to be able to produce art, because in art historical context, art povera and all that, it would end up back in the museum. But how to use this precarious object to produce art, which the capital comes back to buy the airplanes, to build an institution, to bring the kids to the place. It creates a new trajectory. So in the future, when these kids are older, they don't occupy the same space as their parents. It creates a different genre in terms of how we live in the world. So culture becomes a new sense of promise. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you ready, guys?
Are you ready for the show?
Are you really ready?
This is the last show.
Yeah.
Clap your hand, everybody. More loud, everybody.
Wow, wow.
Tuma luma prove it you rock. Luma prove it you jack. Tugga, dama job buffer.
Who they can't even what a sassa.
Dama fight the street, but sama janta fenk. Yaga na ñu di ma xeeb booba six sa xeeñ. Yaga naaj pour mën a toog ci kër gi wow di xeeb.
Ana ñu fi sànni ne.
Ay xale féroce dama pare. ñeme aw kese. Def bay ese duma jekku di baale. Ndam yóbbaale. Jéem ma dépassé ma tar fese ci sa at. Muy clap def tat.
No man dama féroce.
No yow da nga féroce.
Ñi fi jot a jaar wuteeg sama bos.
Li fi jot a jaar wuteeg suñu bos.
My kaani sa soos.
My kaani sa soos.
Duma la ci may te doo ci mos.
Duma la ci may te doo ci mos.
Ku liggéey bu ko neexee noos.
Bu ko neexee noos.
Saf may li ci nokkos.
Saf yaay li ci nokkos.
Loo cere ma soos.
Loo cere ma soos.
Ñu dem.
Wow. Everybody. Come on. Kalana.
Everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody. We love you. It was
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. We are Deaf Mama Deaf.
And we love you.
Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I didn't even say anything. I just love the fact that we started with that energy and we're finishing with the same energy. It's really great. I really want to thank all of you for coming tonight and for being such a wonderful audience, receiving everyone that was on stage with such warmth. And I also would like to really thank our speakers, Ailton Krenak, Alain Gomis, Hassan Darsi, María Medrano, Maya Ali Brashi, and Ibrahim Mahama, and of course, Luis Alcantara, who could not be here with us today. And I also would like to thank Pablo for co-hosting with me, and there we go. And also thank the performers for giving us such a lot of energy throughout. So Def Mama Def, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a number of days with a lot of activities, and I know that I will not get another chance to really say this, but I really would like to thank my team, the PCF team, who have put the last 2 days and even tomorrow, because we have a lot more happening in the week, and they've done a wonderful job to get us where we are today, and I just really would like to ask all of you to give them a round of applause. And you'll get to see more of the work that they do, and all the support team and everybody. Thank you very much. But I also want to say, because there's so much more happening over the next, not just this week, but over the next 2 weeks, that I would like to invite you to have another chance to take part in several public events in Amsterdam. And on Sunday, you can hear Mami and Defa. So there's their names. It's Mami Victory and Defa with the long hair. They're going to be interviewed. I love them. They're going to be interviewed together with local artist Ella John, who is here tonight. She's wearing like a kif hat. Oh, you took the hat off. There we go. And others in a masterclass organized by the fund in collaboration with Dusk Graduate School. And this will be from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock at Adrian on the Rokin. So please feel free to go. They will also be taking part in the Right About Now Festival in Brakkegrond on Friday the 16th. And also another one of our CWDs whom you will also be seeing, if those of you that are joining us tomorrow for the ceremony, you will be seeing them perform, will be taking part in some of the other events, and his name is Sunday Obiajulu Ozegbe. We know him as Valu. Yeah, I think he's here as well. And Valu will be giving a presentation also at the DAS Masterclass this Sunday, and will be performing with his Dancers Innovate on Saturday the 17th at the Right About Now as well. And so with the full stories behind us today, you are welcome to stay behind and have a drink with us. But I would like to say, on behalf of the Prince Claus Fund and the Felix Meritus, thank you very much for coming, and have a wonderful evening further. Thank you.